Hey folks, Nick Stockard here with the Historical Fencing Guild. Before we get into tonight's program, got to thank a few folks and pay a few bills. The Historical Fencing Guild is made possible by our good friends over at the Independent Creator Directory. That's IndieCD.org, your one-stop shop for the best and the brightest. There's authors, artists, and musicians. We are also made possible by sales of the Simple Sword, the Fighting Axe, and the Simple Spear, all part of my ongoing series of Western martial arts manuals designed to help you go from having never handled the sword to teaching the art to others. And further, we are made possible to by our patrons. Off in the Woods, Frog G, Ronald, Riehn, Bladed Thesis, Brian K. Morris, Cindy Koepp, Steve Agosto, Don Dulas, Angelina, Vaquera-Linke, and Trilaina, Bachman. You guys make it possible for me to do what I keep doing. So let's go over what's been going on. I do have some footage, not much, but I have to go through it for uh, the practice we held, and looks like next week will be another such practice. Um, I have until then to get certain things done. However, I have until tomorrow to prep for the visit of a dear friend. So I'm going to be having to prioritize and focus on that. That does not mean I don't have plans. In fact, I have quite a bit to discuss and show off for you guys, because I know Thesis is going to ask at some point in the near future. Yes, as I've had time, I have been reading over the book you sent me. It is absolutely wonderful, and seeing the points of cross reference, it's just delightful. It really is. Um, I have till next week, so that will be a big part of next week's plan. Um, Working towards getting that tabbed and marked up and highlighted how I feel it should be. So that's coming down. Hi, Midnight. Glad to see you're in the chat. But we have a couple concepts that people wanted to discuss. So I need to go over that. I have an item up to the Marshall collection to go over, which makes me very happy. We're going to get into this and a few other things. I just want to take a second, check the chat, realize I left my beverage out in the living room, but we'll be fine. I hope. I will break out one of these guys. Now, oh, absolutely. Kitty, and welcome. It will be very, very interesting. So, I got some questions. Um, I would have to switch broadcasts, and like I said, I should be okay. And if it needs to, I will take you up on that idea, and I will run some type of ad and get that beverage. Because I thought I brought it in with. See, I did. I'm just distracted. Hello, Dark Moon. I did remember it. Oh, that's so much better. My evening meds did not decide to go where they were supposed to. So, before we get into that, I want to talk about this, which means I have to go on Amazon and bring up my purchases so that I can put the link in the chat at least for you guys to be able to look it up. Cancel, please stop. I just want to go to this thing. Alrighty, and what we'll do is we will move tab to new window, and we'll bring this up. And present. Yes, it's not even a taste thing. Occasionally they get caught in the scars in my throat, and it can be very, very uncomfortable. So we will be doing this real quick. The image up close is not very impressive. It's a 43 and a half inch, I want to say inch and a half, a little more than an inch in diameter, inch and a quarter, but it is remarkably solid. I haven't done a lot of destructive tests with it, and it will be another week before I get to spar with it. But this is truly one of those wow. I'm sorry, I've been shocked with what Dark Moon had to say, so I will be getting into that. But basically, I've been looking for one of these that wasn't the very rat-tailed thing that Cold Steel put out, and that wasn't the Night Watchman because it was overpriced. This guy ran. What does this guy run? Oh, it's currently unavailable. They have run out of them. Splendid. I told you guys to get them. But I want to say this ran me about $40. And I am not surprised at all that they are bought out. Don't worry about that sound. Finding a practical Joe staff that I can spar with. It's heavy enough to have that weight, small enough I can grip. It's very, very, very responsive. There's a bit of flex, but it's not wibbly. It really is in that sweet spot. Now, it did arrive damaged. At least the box did. The box had been basically ripped nearly in half. I suspect somebody was making sure it wasn't some kind of firearms order. And when they saw a black plastic stick by Ibogu, they just decided to let it go through. And I'm appreciative of that because this is a very nice, very reasonable trainer. I do hope it isn't something that disappears. Now, there was an order that was put in to Purple Heart Armory. I have no idea when that's coming in. PHA orders often can take quite a while, but I'm really looking forward to reviewing what's coming in from them for me. However, I am kind of shocked, and we're just going to jump to Dark Moon's comment. I recently got a Velox Simple Steel. So what I'm going to do is I'm just come over here real quick. A Velox Simple Steel side sword. Let me see. Oh, okay. It's a Black Fencer special. Okay, from Black Fencer through SoCal Swords. So, to give people an idea, and of course they're sold out. That's fine. One of that's really wait, is it doing the window thing? Yeah, it's doing the window thing. 1 second. Screen, entire screen. There we go. All righty. So that is a $325 sword before shipping and handling. This is not a hide that please. Thank you. Light weapon by any measure. It's certainly an elegant weapon, and just overall looking at the pommel to blade reference, it looks a 37-inch blade that should handle like a dream, but it arrived very beaten up. The Quillian block was horribly offset to the left. The blade was bent to the right. And for being pinged, my pommel was loose. A loose peened pommel? I mean, that's obscene. I'm sorry. Um, I would reach out to them because the kind of money you're throwing, especially fighting the tariffs and all the shenanigans, I am just, I'll be honest, I'm a bit sick over this image. Over the idea of this coming that poorly shipped. Um, and for being peened, my pommel's loose. And ouch, I was, okay. So I was able to send it back, and they were kind enough to give me their tournament model in place of the simple version. I highly recommend requesting extra packaging and pay an extra shipping cost, or your sword will arrive in a flat box with no support. That's monstrous, folks. Thank you for the heads up. I'll be honest. Um, Black Fencer weapons, and certainly these steel, have been and are far outside my financial ability. But that's almost as much as I paid for my first car. Yes, it was quite a while ago, obviously, but still, you should not have to deal with that level of mistreatment, especially from a established firm. But it does sound like they um, accepted the issues, and responded. So I'm very glad of that. We've got lots of comments. And evening, I'm the only like. That's got to be a glitch coming in and seeing no one else has, right? I'm sure, and that does actually glitch out quite frequently. Foxy says I liked it. Try refreshing, Sarah. Figured it had to be a glitch on my end. Looks strange. It's all good. Just checking. No worries. My first Hanbo came broken. The end was sticking out of the box and the knock was busted. I took pics and got a replacement. It is gut wrenching when something you order comes in busted. And oh my gosh, the hilt to that sword looks like it's meant for something else from the close up. I understand. The tournament model they sent me has a diamond cross section, which will lend to more wear, but it's a great return. The sword they sent me is over $100 more for no extra cost at all. That is wonderful, and that's what you do. If there's an accident, you do everything in your power to make it right, and then a bit more. So I respect that. Leaving that there with the yep, that's the reality of my broadcasts. I have often an underage audience and very good customer service, and definitely not in the green room this evening. Okay, got you. Don't have the energy. Still be working on that. That's fine. It happens. Now, is this doing that? There we are. Do need to look for more possible friend requests, though. Absolutely. I need to as well. We need to be connected. But I did get some interesting comments, and I do have, like I said, I have the videos. I have to go through and check them carefully, because the next door neighbor sometimes plays music. If the music is there, I have to try to run the video through essentially muted and then talk over it. I really don't want to have to do that, but I have to check these things so I don't get copyright strikes or anything like that. It's just part of the game. But another part of the game is answering the really great questions that I get and the comments that I get. So I got a couple, and one was a really neat conversation on the middle to later part of somebody's journey, and then a really neat conversation on the beginning part of the journey. So, um, the later question was, what do you wish manuals told better that you don't find expressed really well in Western martial arts manuals? One thing I found to be lacking in many manuals is proper footwork. I mean, there are some that have incredibly detailed. So it really is a feast or famine situation. You either have all the footwork notes in the world or minimal notes at all. Um, I think a lot of the Eastern manuals are written with the sense of being cliff notes, just enough to remind you how to do what will remind your body how to do it, and then you would actually learn from your instructor. Nothing wrong with that, but it's something that it's just a style. Even in the Western manuals, the reconstructions usually are a bit easier to get a hold of and to process. Uh, whew, we're gonna have to hold on to that one, Foxy, because we're going to talk. That's a great comment. Um, Getting back to it, footwork and understanding combinations, because a great many manuals give you, if they do this, then you do that, but they don't feed into the next step. And like hold off on that because there's some discussions going on. The the idea of how to chain your attacks is not discussed enough, especially in the Western manuals. I follow a lot of martial arts. I have dabbled and observed because I can learn from just about any open hand art something that will apply to a weapon based art if my mentality is in place to do so. This is why I love studying the techniques of boxers. Um, there are few better resources for quickly understanding fairly complex concepts in all right, we have to stop like right there. There's some definitions going on. uh, that I have to double check something real quick. We have to talk because spring steel. Hold on. I don't know why there is a bashing on spring steel. Spring steel has a tremendous flexibility and to retain its shape, which is what makes it perfect for sword making and highly sought after for forging. If you're going to make live steel knives, or you are going to make fencing blades, absolutely you want spring steel. Um, it's it's higher purity. The way that the steel holds its form but flexes is what keeps it from breaking in combat. Hold on. Okay. This is a live steel uh, gymnasium saber. if you notice, it flexes. Steel that is not in the family of spring steel will not do this very well. It will be brittle and snap. That's why, in part, katanas of the period, not modern, because modern katanas usually use modern steel. They use Takahane steel, which is garbage. It has to be folded and refined that much because of the hideous amounts of impurities. But spring steel. Alrighty, let's see. How are you doing? Perfect. Spring steel is what allows this to not be rigid, not be. What you're hearing is an discussion, but this is literally spring steel. And when you hear it, you'll find spring steel when you're sourcing it from industrial parts, highly in leaf springs and highly in compression springs. Now, with the compression spring steel, it's often yes, pig iron. The compression make really good Damascus because you can cut it up, you can put it in a chamber, a vessel, and you can burn. But you absolutely pig iron is very, very brittle, though. So what you want is you want a metal that flexes. This is why the Wilkinson sabers had to be able to bend over like this and spring right back. This is high quality spring steel. I cannot bring up the number right now, and I did that extreme bend test without damaging my 30-inch rapier. This is what you want. So, yes, spring steel is very good stuff. Now, sometimes you want a more rigid steel because you are making something for more rigid applications. Axes, hammers, things like that. But you have to be careful because rigidity is parallel with brittleness. And that's what... I love the Japanese katana. But I love the Japanese katana not because of the mythos of it cutting into cutting tanks in half and all that silliness and the 1,000 folds. I love it because that is a weapon and a level of technology that was developed out of necessity. That they did not get. They did not have what we would consider crucible steel. So your Uthbert steel, which I want to say was developed in the Middle East first, and then it found its way west. But they were prized as being nearly magical when they were used by, say, your friendly Norsemen who went to Viking. Because a sword has to be able to flex when it hits something. If it's too rigid, it will break. That's why we're not using like wrought iron. Wrought iron doesn't really work real well. This is one of those that almost universally spring steel has become a very good thing. Not to be confused. Yes, it is because it's garbage steel. Right now, that kind of steel is used to make really cruddy bits and drivers. It is absolute trash, which is why modern katanas, when they are made reputably, have the potential to be far superior because they've made monstrous jumps in metallurgy. If one can afford quality, the quality of a modern-made practical sword versus a period-made practical sword, there is no there's no comparison. But wow, this is gonna be a spicy one, guys. You want a bit of flex in your rigs, and you were thinking wushu steel. No, I understand, because wushu steel breaks my heart. Wushu steel is like swearing. And I've literally used wushu steel as an oath. You could ask Trilaina, were she here? But, and don't worry, Tamahagane is not easy. Yeah. That was developed by the communists to keep martial artists from being able to be effective. As somebody who has some opinions where edged weapons and things like that are approached by arms regulations, it just drives me nuts. And it's one of those, you could look up on YouTube wushu steel and watch the fights. It looks like polished aluminum foil. But yes, spring steel is what you want. I know, because I have acquired some spring steel. I just have to cut it apart and do some work on that front. But right now I have to get ready because I may be having a visitor. Actually, I'm supposed to be having a visitor tomorrow afternoon night, because the lovely Don Dulas may be passing through. I don't know if it will be an extended stay or if it will be just a drop off a pile of Nerf guns, receive cash, and beep beep on her way. But I have to be ready for both. Yeah, it's okay, Sarah. He's good at breaking brains. And this is going to be a theme of tonight. There are some things I am going to get into because I actually have got some pushback and some people who they were blocked. I'm not going to deal with them anymore. But on not believing that the Western martial arts are martial arts, because unless you learned it from a dojo, it's not a martial art, which is great because that term does not apply for a lot of the martial arts out there. And it's much like the MMA devotees, which I have no beef with, but understanding it is a very devastating sport style of fighting. It has a lot of strengths and it can easily be adapted, but it does require adaptation for more practical applications in some cases, just like boxing does. But I mean, it just all feeds in. The trick is being able to look at things and finding what you can learn from them. Now, oh, Johnny, you may make fun of Aikido, but with the caveat, you understand that the modern version is a very diluted from the source material. And what happened is, period Aikido was developed essentially as a policeman style. So much like I am trained in CPI, Crisis Prevention and Intervention, which has physical elements of therapeutic holds. Basically, when you are dealing with a patient or a client who is not mentally of the right place and may become violent, or will, in the case of where I worked, you have to be able to engage in essentially unarmed and, in their case, occasionally armed combat to subdue them, but you have to do so without violating any of their rights, without harming them, and if at all possible, and without damaging them. Hurting someone and damaging them are two very different things. You should aim to do neither, which means I was trained down to a much more limited set of responses so that I would not hurt a client, even if they were, as times were, attempting to do vast physical harm to me. It's a limited style. It is not a battlefield style. I would never take someone, have them just train in CPI and put them in a combat situation. It's ludicrous. Wrong tool set for the job. Now, there are some people who could do a lot with that, but that's usually because they have other elements that they can draw upon. A martial art is much like a weapon in that it isn't necessarily the wrench, it's the mechanic. You understand what I'm saying? So I actually learned a lot from Aikido, from books, but my problem was any martial art, be it Aikido, be it some practitioners of Krav Maga, that they do not stress test, greatly concerns me. Okay? You get what I'm saying? If you don't stress test your art, even if your technique would be applicable, you don't have the experience, timing, you don't know your ranges, and you don't know what resistance feels like. I said it before, I will say it again. I spent several years in the company of Sword Sage over on YouTube. You should be subscribed to him. He's a neat guy. And we sparred a lot, like I did with a great many people when my body worked. And open hand, weapons, assorted different techniques. And whenever he had learned a new technique from wherever he was learning them, sometimes we were deciphering VCDs. Yes, I'm dating myself. Sometimes we were looking at videos. We were talking about something he picked up from an instructor he encountered or one of his old instructors, and we would work through the styles, which is why I picked up a lot of, in my open-handed, I have a good deal of Wing Chun tendencies, especially when I'm thinking, which you'll notice as I'm thinking a lot of times and I'm working through how I want to talk, you see this a lot, these weird gestures. It was picked up from playing patty cake with Marco. I have some stuff I picked up that's Hapkido related from playing patty cake with John Miner, which is really weird with his hands being twice the size of mine and his foot being about this big. And you catch a foot that big to the chest, it's something. He managed to launch me about 15 feet back with about a half-speed kick through a Wave Master. So one of the water-filled heavy bags I was helping brace, he still launched me. I've learned a lot. And it infects my style. I don't know if that makes sense. You adapt with unconsciously. And believe it or not, the process of adapting unconsciously leads to the second set of things that I get whenever I ask, do people have questions? The first one being, the first one in this case being a combination of two things. Either I am clumsy or I have no experience. Okay. We'll start with the clumsy one because I've said it before, but occasionally we get new viewers. I want to say it again. Medically, there are only a couple reasons you could be clumsy. Something wrong with your inner ears that affects your balance, something wrong with your skeletal structure that affects your balance, something neurological that literally affects your balance. These are all medical conditions. Um, to an extent, I've had to deal with these. Then you have your mental. Um, it can be lack of physical awareness, which is something that can be learned. Our physical education system in American schools does a lot of things, but does not explain why they're doing these things or what the value in doing these things are. So they basically make you do things that can be very uncomfortable for no reason. It's all messed up. They don't explain it, so why would you want to do it? What are you getting from it other than hot and sweaty? Um, but the most common one, and this can be attached to neurodivergence. So your ADDs, your autistics especially, is a disconnection from where you are spatially and where you are mentally. Um, and this is not an attack. People always treat it like it's an attack. They're like, oh, you should be paying more attention. It doesn't, paying attention to the problem doesn't solve the problem. It doesn't address the problem. You need to develop tools and techniques that help pull you in. And you have to bring yourself to the present. And there are some ways and methodologies you can use to do that. There are physical things. So I'm very late diagnosed attention deficit high. They wanted to throw some extra names, letters in there, but I had some problems with the system, so we went our separate ways before I got any more of the diagnoses than I needed. But I almost always wore a necklace. Usually it was a cross as a part of my religion, but I tended toward heavy crosses. I wanted some weight because it was comforting. So if you're having problems with this, taking or removing jewelry, something that gives you, uh, and yes, absolutely, PTSD is another one of those that hi, my name is. Uh, you need to uh, you need to learn why you why you feel this way and what can be done about it. A lot of times, especially early in my career, I haven't done so as much because I haven't been able to find them in chunky size. I wore what's called Under Armour, heat wicking tight like leggings and the tight shirts you see football players and stuff run around in. Okay, that compression not only gave me all the benefits of the heat wicking and kind of rash guard goodness, but it helped me know where I was. Um, Early on, I actually had a set of wrist and ankle weights that I would train in to build up the stamina of moving and carrying so that I could keep track of where I was. You can train yourself towards physical connection, physical centering. Uh, Thank you, Sarah. But it takes time and it takes training. And yeah, a lot of things have been thrown at me. A lot of things are thrown at me at any given day. Um, I have medical conditions. Some of them are a little rough, but I try to take what I've endured and forge it into tools that I can use to help other people. because I'm sorry. This is starting. This hits areas that are personal, so I have to be careful what I'm comfortable saying to the public and to serve you guys. So it is a balance, and I've yes. Oh no, you're fine, Sarah. You're not you don't need to apologize. I just I want you to understand. Oh, we could DM. We'll be fine. Uh, we bring who we are into the list field as trainers, as students, as individuals. And one of the hardest things is my mind cannot go back. I can't let myself flash back to who and where I was. Oh no, you're fine. I'm just apologizing for the extra stammering. Some people take the way I speak as not knowing what I'm talking about, and it's just me navigating my brain short circuiting. Um, but what we bring to the list field has to be left outside it. We have to be focused on what we're doing because if not, you could hurt someone or someone could hurt you. And people don't get that actual, attention issues don't just interfere when you are doing something you don't want to do. They interfere when you're doing something with what you do want to do. It's always a game. It's all about, you know, the mix of wrangling the squirrels and finding a flow to go with where the squirrels are going, if you get that. But part, I took up the styles of art I took up, and I continue to pursue um, for several goals. And when you're getting onto the field, when you're thinking about, you need to ask yourself some questions. Why am I doing it? And because it's cool, totally acceptable answer. But I had to balance the desire of never again, okay? Never again being so weak and so untrained, unskilled that I can't respond in some way. There is a huge difference in enduring something and getting your licks in versus enduring something and being able to do nothing about it. It's why to this day I have a lot of trouble of I can either do this thing I don't want to do, I don't like, I'm not comfortable with, I am hurt by because it's necessary, or I can smile. But if you ask me, you try to force me to do both, you're going to have problems. Uh, because that's too much of an artifice for me. So we need to pull in. Now, one thing that helped me, because when I went in, I wanted to deal with this, but I understood I had this well of anger, this well of fear, this well of just yuck in me. And it's always going to be there. It's the part of you that just is born of the scars. There will always be echoes. So I wanted to control it, which is why I did not pursue heavy fighting early on, because I found it played too nice with the demons I was actively trying to exercise. So I had to focus on fencing uh, at the time. Heavy fencing in the SCA. Uh, because I was seeking control. So, for me, calibration is always the first thing because that is the baseline of control. I would rather have bad form. I would rather lose every bout. I would rather uh, just make a butt of myself than have bad calibration because bad calibration means I have thrown a shot too hard and I'm hurting people. My first instructor had deliberate, villainous, vile calibration when he was in the mood to, and even if he wasn't, he would hurt the students. And that is something I cannot abide nor agree with. So all of that is on lockdown with me. And a lot of how I learned to focus when nothing else would teach me was actually forms of marksmanship. Anytime I'm aiming, because if I'm aiming, nothing matters but the shot. Breathe in, breathe out, squeeze the trigger. Whether you're doing releasing a bow, you're throwing a knife, throwing an axe, either handed, or you're shooting, again, either handed. It's all that pulls it down, which is why I love encouraging Nerf so much. Because if people start playing Nerf, they have to aim at some point. And I keep a philosophy that any day I could shoot a Nerf gun can't be that bad. So I make it a point to ring the gong in my hallway every day to remind myself no matter what's going on, no matter how bad it may be, it's not that bad. And the action of aiming and letting tunnel vision, it's like applied hyperfocus. And it lets you get a feeling of how hyperfocus works too. It's really kind of neat that way. It helps. So when I am sparring, I like to be focused in on what I am doing. When I am training, I'm focused in on a level of being a trainer the way one focuses in on being the level of an instructor. And because I spent a lot of time in the front end of the classroom, a lot of time in the back end too, I you develop a passive sense of what's going on around you and an active sense in what you're doing. Uh, this is how you stay safe. This is how you stay aware of where the edges of the list field are. Um, it's a kind of a big deal. So that can be developed. And if you develop it during training time, especially under stress when you are sparring, there will be stress. I mean, you're essentially playing tag with sticks. Don't let the severity and importance of what's going on blind you to falsely lead you to the complexity of it. It's not. At its root, it's not. It's very simple. But if you learn to be aware and you learn to move in a simple way, you build a foundation. And from that foundation, you can learn to dance. But you can't dance till you can walk, and you can't walk till you can stand. And that's why everybody starts from the ground up with me. They don't realize it, but they basically learn the box step while I'm at it. Uh, it's my little gift to the world. But that no one who is lacking, no one, let me phrase this, no one outside the medical uh, neurological type conditions who is and sees themselves as clumsy is clumsy. There's always a reason. It may, and again, it may be something's wrong with your glasses prescription, ear issues. There are ways, but you go through and you knock all these out. And if it leaves you with you're just not mindful of your situation, then you have your answer. Um, the second one that was taught, what was brought to me was this idea, this concept that um, oh yes, you're absolutely right, Sarah. This is great. Great teaching of staying in the present to not disassociate from past trauma. That's what I derailed myself in conveying. Lose control with dissociation. Yes, it's very easy for me to to get caught up in the concern of what I know the future mechanically will hold. I mean, it's not even statistical. X, Y, and Z are going to happen. How do I deal with that? How do I deal with that in a world where I have a special needs son? How do I deal with that in a world where I have physical limitations? How do I deal with that in a world where I have financial limitations? How do I deal with that in a world where my lovely wife is the breadwinner? Balancing all this out is tremendous and it's waiting. And if I look towards that, I'm not here and I can get sucker punched. If my mind is in the back, thinking about the good old days or the bad old days, or man, what do I want to have for lunch? I'm not here. The mental training, one of the greatest things we can accomplish is by being here. Sarah says mind link. I think it's more a harmony of frequency. Find the right groove. Mentally dancing together. Uh, but the other thing that was brought to me that I have to address, and this was last week at the practice, um, I I had some folks. Thank you. Uh, express concerns, and it's funny because I heard it from a couple people all at the same time. Nick, you say in the manual, yeah, be where your feet are, that no one comes from zero. No one is a blank slate when they step on the field. And I know of some people who are genuinely concerned, but I know nothing. And every single case I've encountered, that statement is a way of someone being unkind to themselves. And maybe they haven't discovered what they know yet. Now, I know it's easier when you've been brought up in the media. I mean, for me, because of my dad's okay, you know, let's go. Let's go for the most basic. How I walk. Um, I do not lift my feet very high when I walk. I never have. This. Hi, Dave. I'm not sure who's graduating, but rock on. Or wait, is that on my shirt? I bet it is. Anyway, isn't this a great shirt? Anyway, um, how I walk, I learned first from observing my father. Because both of us, our feet point out kind of funny. And both of us have this almost slow, we all but drag our feet. Uh, we don't stomp as a rule, unless we're going somewhere quickly, you know, that's a whole different thing. But neutral gait is this odd, almost skating. And that's something that you develop when you spend time in Southeast Asia. The heat. Same thing with certain people from the South. If you look at certain people who've grown up in the deep South, they don't tend. And hey, Dave, it really is great to see you. Uh, they don't tend to lift their feet up very much. They've learned it communally. Everybody has something. Everybody has something because as soon as you pop your bubble, I grew up relatively isolated, at least at home. Uh, Most of my interactions came from school and employments and things like that. Uh, as soon That's why. Yep, yep. The non-stick shoes face plant. I fully understand that, Sarah. But walking the way I walk means I feel the ground under me. It lets me gives me a little bit more information. I'm far less likely to step down on something I shouldn't than uh, if I took very large, very standard pop steps. You get what I'm saying? I do a lot of heel to toe in that motion, so I rock, so it's quiet. It's very quiet when I'm walking in the woods. In fact, it is so quiet that I regularly would scare people because I'd just be standing there. I got to the habit of wearing my keys or things so that I would jingle as I approached. That way I got into that so I wouldn't startle my father. Now, what does this have to do with fencing and what I'm talking about? The the way you move naturally should be, once you have gained the physical education to understand how not to trip on the field, it should become natural. And what you do naturally should be a little bit more infected. You will find yourself moving differently the more you train. And one thing I found is if you look at how older members of martial arts uh, move, you learn a lot about it. You learn about how their joints get damaged if they get damaged. If you see somebody who does a martial art and they're still in their 60s or their 80s and they're still doing it and they walk like a human being, that's somebody you want to pay attention to. If you see somebody whose martial art has left their hands unable to close properly, blown out their elbows from sharp repetitive motions, blown out their back from the extremes of the stances, that's damaging. But all that can be routed down to the very beginning. Uh, the cases of when I say when I'm working with somebody, they don't. Uh, Nobody starts at zero. Uh, it's something that is instantaneous and very easy for me to do in person because I've trained a lot in watching body language, watching body mechanics for health reasons, uh, kinesthetics, things like this. so that I have an idea just by how somebody walks. Okay, that's a martial artist. That's a football player. That's you've done something, or you haven't, or you're a dancer. Are you heavy on your feet? Are you light on your feet? The other thing is when I say zero, and I have to add this in, this is a part that needs to be added in when I do the new edition, because it's been 10 years since I've written that book. My understanding has improved a bit. I put 15 years into that book. I'm sitting at 25 years looking back at it. There's a cumulative effect. Uh, People come with negatives. Um, and that factors in. So I will observe what happens when, say, there's a sudden and unexpected loud noise. How do people respond? Do they flinch? Do their hands go for, concealed carry weapons of some sort? Do they fall into a stance? Are they just taken aback and they don't have a response? Looking into all this helps measure where they're coming from. Um, what kind of person they are. Are they energetic? Are they forward in speaking? Or are they more reserved in tone and in body language? Now, granted, there are some easy to capture things that I can say that are on my kind of do you smell fudge list when I am talking to somebody. I ask questions like, do you have a background in any martial arts? Yes, no. Do you have a background in dance? Do you have military training? Were you in ROTC? Did you play certain sports? One big one I bump into are the band people. Oh, you give me a shield wall of marching band folks, and I am in heaven because they know their left foot from their right, and they know how to wheel and move with precise steps. It is chef's kiss. Makes my life a lot easier. But it's very easy for people who have reason to feel different to equate the differences in experience levels, the differences in strength, the differences in force of personality as something that makes them lesser. The idea that everybody else is in on the joke and I don't know what's going on yet. It's a horrible feeling. And I know because I've been there. But you need to understand that the second I talk to, okay, Kitty was in the chat. I don't know if Kitty's still in the chat. Kitty is, from everything I have heard, seen, and referenced, a remarkable dancer. If I saw her and saw how she moved, and I were inclined to dance, I would be uh, affected instantaneously. As soon as you take a class, that's going to affect how you step, how you move, how you feel in the middle of a list field, because a list field, when it's properly set up, looks a lot like a dance studio. A lot like a dance studio, just with higher ceilings. Oftentimes there's a mirrored wall. Oftentimes there's a banister. Oftentimes there are objects around that can be used as obstacles and can be trained to deal with things. Um, oh, I'm glad you're back, Foxy. that uptick in knowledge, that understanding is so strong and so powerful, it happens often subconsciously. And when we are getting into things, the reason we do the same thing over and over again is not to train the bacon meat up here. You're fine. I'm glad you had something to do. I'm glad, Kitty. I hope I'm making sense. Uh, we do the repetitive things so that it becomes reflex. Uh, it doesn't. You're training the arm. I'd been fencing for. This isn't a story I like to tell, but I'd been fencing for 3 years, 4 years, somewhere in there, which means I transferred over to teaching. Uh, at that time, I was throwing thousands of shots a night, sets of hundreds, doing lunges and things. Uh, Formidable. And I had never had a physical altercation since I'd started. And a relative had the slight habit of striking me. Um, Not often. I could easily count the number of occasions on one hand. But I remember a progression where at one point they went to strike me and I avoided. I just went, no, we're not doing that right now. And this is, this was after a lot. And, there was confusion. And then the second time, the relative attempted to uh, to strike me. After I'd voided, but they did as kind of a surprise. Came up and they opened with it, and I essentially parried out. And the shock of the impact ran through her face because it's like, you raise your hand to me? I'm like, no, but you will not strike me again. We can argue, we can debate, but you may not strike me again. And it shocked me because I was as shocked as they were, because I didn't. It was not intentional. It was pure reflex from simply training and sparring every day that I could. Multiple practices a week, and then pick up fights wherever I could get them. Just going. My body decided it knew how to handle that stimuli. And while that's not a great example, it's a point towards the effect. And part of what it comes in, you gain the confidence when you fight. You start to gain the confidence to look others in the eye. And when you train and you really work at it, if you are being taught correctly and they're not building you to be under them, which I have seen, That they're not grooming you to be part of their harem, metaphorically or literally. Uh, you get where you can look people in the face when you really do. When before maybe you couldn't. You do it long enough, you can look the mirror in the face. And that, for some of us, ends up a lot harder. Because with every positive training we receive when we step on the field, every negative that we carry also comes with us. And as we learn, it gets cold and separated. And you start to be able to go, this I keep, this I get rid of, this I'm attached to, whether I like it or not. And sorting that process out is remarkably helpful. I am not a mental health professional. I am not a doctor. I'm nothing like that. I'm just talking about what my personal journey has been and what I've seen my students go through totally unintentionally whilst fighting, whilst training, whilst getting a sword in their hand and going at it. Uh, to go on to Sarah's, this was a conversation that was very brief, and it happened. I get notifications of comments on videos after they've been up. Okay. So an individual popped up I did not know. They asked what sounded like some reasonable questions and gave very unreasonable assaults. And while I gleefully take the opportunity for people to disagree with me because I can learn so much from that, I will not abide a level of rudeness. That's part of the boundaries I set as a streamer. It's part of the boundaries as I try to set as a person. And it's not natural to me. I was not brought up to be that person. I was not inclined. If left to my own devices, I'm a people pleaser. If left to my own devices, I would rather take the hit than anyone else take a hit. And I tend to endure more than I should because that's what I was made to be. However, when I am in the role that the Historical Fencing Guild puts me in, you know, when I am in Swordmaster or Guildmaster mode, it has to transcend that. And I do I want to learn. I want to improve so that no, you're making perfect sense. You're fine, Sarah, and I can keep up with your Ricochet Rabbit lines of thought just fine. But I can't always speak in times with it when I'm thinking very hard or I'm emotional. And right now I'm a little bit of both. Last week was a very, very difficult week for me, or this week actually. God. But it's important for me to really reach out. And this is why people who come to me, one of my rules is until they are safe and confident and competent, this level, the newbies fight with me. And I do that because I have a curriculum. So I don't just have lessons and things I want to learn. I know when they need to. I can evaluate if they need more time before they learn concepts. I can redirect when things don't work right for them. The problem is, and I learned this, training is a case where too many cooks definitely spoil the soup, especially one at a time. The early game. People need to learn from one person at a time. And when I'm in person, that's why I teach and why I have for so long, because I can analyze and see some stuff other people can't. And teaching is a skill set separate from the actual fighting. Uh, it requires me to know the subject, but it also requires me to know the pedagogy to present the subject, the means to inform and educate, the means to evaluate their progress and make adjustments, hopefully without damaging their emotional state too bad. Uh, it's a lot of work. But if uh, if everybody comes to the plate with the same goal and an understood direction, everyone levels up, but especially you. And once somebody is safe and they have a concrete foundation, they can even step off it later. But they have this island of they know this works and they've learned it in order. One story I talk about is I have a friend who no longer fights with us due to having many, many kids. Love you, bud. I miss you if you ever get a chance to catch this. Uh, but I was training him, and another buddy of mine showed him an advanced shot. He's like, look, he taught me this. And it was so far beyond where he should have been that it took 6 months to fix this horrible tell because he was using a trick shot almost every single time. The trick didn't work anymore. That's a one and done kind of move. But if you learn it too early, you latch on. So it's very vital that the basics be refined to the best efficacy that they can possess and be taught in a way that is in the sequence that you understand this to do this. It's much like learning math in that if you don't understand multiplication, there's probably a problem somewhere in addition. And I know that's a simple, but there you have to go back to the previous process. Um, so working through that is very important. But when you are new, especially if you are coming to learn to sword fight from a place of how do I put this? A lack of confidence due to your experiences. Maybe it's abuse, maybe it's neglect, maybe it's PTSD, whatever. It's vital that you give yourself the grace that you're allowed to ask questions, you're allowed to make statements, you're allowed to set boundaries, but you're also allowed to listen and to understand that a correction or an adjustment is not a an attack. It's not anyone lashing out at anyone. So to my friend who's been DMing me basically the whole time on my phone, uh, I hope that you realize that, and I hope that is of service to you because you're not doing anything wrong. The other thing is if how do I put this? if you want to learn, you have to give a level of grace that if something hurts or confuses, which cognitive dissonance can be physically painful, um, uh, it isn't intended by the presenter. Okay, what do I mean by that? I will give a personal example. Due to aspects of how I grew up and my social groups and things and how people treated and mistreated me over the years, I am not really good or comfortable with certain types of praise or compliments to the point where it can be physically painful and panic inducing because so many people try to use positive reinforcement to get me to do things that was a lie. Uh, Internally, it's massively difficult for me to accept some of the more positive statements as being possibly real and not a setup. The whole there's a I want to say a country song. Sorry, Sarah, but about there's a reason I keep my feet on the sidewalk. There's a song about that, and I am I am much better about it than I used to be. But I have to explain this because sometimes I'll just ghost. Um, in part because if good things happen, they're usually taken away at the most painful time, or they were for a long period of my life. So I've had to learn it. It took me decades to be able to a have a birthday party and be the center of attention. Could not do it. It's like I'm doing the stream, and while I am doing the stream, I am the center. Obviously I'm the person on screen, but I am doing this as a service. Does that make sense? Even when I am instructing, when I'm doing things that are administrative with the guild, setting up events, I can do that because I truly believe in the importance of servant leadership. So for me, my opinion on government would be the person with the president of the United States should be the person who has the least amount of power to act on their opinions. Because the president of the United States should be a representative of the ideal that we all want. Whether that person agrees or not politically, their job is to preserve the needs of the people and preserve the the comforts to serve the most. So the more power to affect change one has, the least, the less, the least, the less, the less. I had the word I wanted and it just left. Control to guide how it manifests they have. And that's not quite how I wanted to say it, but it's close enough. That's what. When I teach, I look at a student and I go, what are they bringing? If uh, if they're bringing positives, I'm not going to overwrite them. So, like, if I had Kitty, if Kitty manifested in my list field, poof, whatever, and said, I want to learn defense your way, the first thing to say, well, I'm going to teach you stuff, but your footwork is going to be your own entirely, because anybody who's done dance for a long period, they can cross their legs and not fall over most of the time. They can take wider steps or narrower steps or gathering steps without loss of stability. So with some way, their arm motions tend to be more fluid and controlled. They know their space on stage, they know their space between the people, which means they know their ranges. They have to be extended for the weaponry involved, but it's not that far. You take somebody who is in Flag Corps, for example, oh, they're a delight because they know how to spin a stick and just not hit the person next to them. Same with marching band and trombone players. I either don't have to address it or I don't have to change it. I do have to explain to them, this is how I normally teach things. I understand that it may not apply to you, but you have the option to use it. As long as you are safe, you are having fun, and you are competent, we can work around things. Okay? Uh, Safe comes first. Uh, but no one is a blank slate. Everyone's been affected by uh, by the experiences, and as soon as you walk in, you're assessing, you're looking, and you're deciding what you think, what you feel, uh, how comfortable or uncomfortable you are, and that's going to affect your reactions. It's going to affect your reaction times. And all of that is stuff as an instructor I need to be keeping track of, which is why I like to train people, usually to start anyway, individually, so that I can learn your mannerisms, uh, your physical quirks. Do you have a rolling gait? Do you favor one side over the other? There's a million and one possible concepts that to speak and define would take hours upon hours, but to observe are almost done subconsciously. Does that make sense? And one thing I always try to do is I try to teach from the perspective of I'm teaching you to be able to teach what I do. Even when I do my advertising, the simple sword, helping you go from having never handled the sword to teaching the art to others. That's what this is. This is a teacher's manual. The trick is you don't know it until you've gotten through it. So you read it and you learn from the perspective of a student. And then you have some experiences and you read it some more. And you have it from the perspective of somebody a little more competent. And eventually you read it from the perspective of someone who teaches it. And that growth is my job. Because that's what lets people become bigger than who they were. And I hope that is useful. Because at the end of the day, more than anything else, all I want is to be a useful source of don't know, a little good, a little light, maybe a little warmth, maybe a little hope. I want to be the person that I did not have but wish I did. Which is a bit heavy. It's a bit deep, perchance, but it's also vitally, vitally important. It means what I value is radically different than what a lot of other instructors and other arts value. Uh, I value personal growth. I value loyalty, honesty, integrity, personal growth, uh, dedication, kindness. Um, I don't care about awards. I don't care uh, certainly about accolades for me. Winning or losing is rarely important unless it's necessary to get a point across. What I care about is it helping? And is it helping you help others? And I suppose that might be just a little bit crazy. But that's okay too. I've been accused as much. And let's see, thinking of getting the Fey energy out and then training would be a good way to work with that. Yep, absolutely. That's a whole nother conversation, but it has applications. And shifting to training mode, Fey Goth / Fey come with disclaimers. We're used to this from past workings with the same that end up in your life, since we end up in your path. I will say this. Everyone is individual in who and what they are, but I do believe, to borrow from RPGs, there are classes. And I don't mean in hierarchy. Get that out of your head. But I mean, I have met people who are of a very specific style. They have certain patterns. And it's funny because I'll always have someone like them in my life. Many times I name the class after the first one or the most significant who hit. A general similarity with differing individuality, yes. So I had one friend. I have. So, we don't talk much, age and distance and such, but very metaphysically inclined, very gothic in taste, very adventurous in any number of the definitions of the word, with a whole lot of the pros and a whole lot of the negatives. So as a class, I am accustomed to this kind of person, which means when I bump into them or someone, it's very easily, it's like musicians. You may be a different person, but if you are a jazz bassist, you're going to have the elements of most of the jazz bassists I know. Yeah, good thing you're experienced with us. I love that. Kitty says, "Why do you think I dance, Sarah? Monday through Friday for 2 hours a day, plus rope dart practice for an hour every morning and training with thesis. Getting that energy out is essential." I drill every single day. I do my medical assigned exercises, much like the calisthenics I was assigned by my father growing up, every single day. Every day. Part of it is getting that out there. Part of it's controlling it. Part of it's just building up. Sarah, on that missing Dusk Till Dawn in the goth scene in Chicago, you may just have to spend some time building up to do that again, if the scene's still like it was. And if not, that's part of the age game. We all know it. You adjust. But getting lost in the joy of things is something to be prized. But um, I've talked a lot about a lot of things. I will be doing a full, uh, you know, recorded review on the staff. Right now, I'm going to say shortcut. If you get to see this come back online on Amazon somewhere, snag it. Just snag it. It's a great stick. Be careful. It is kind of weighty in that it can be very impactful. I may be putting feet on the ends of this, just to make it easier to use to walk if I need a walking stick. Um, and it's good because I need to go back to training with something like that for my own personal development. But guys, we've gone, over a half hour over. I need to tend to a few things. So thank you, chat, for being so supportive and discussing such things with me. I hope I answered the questions to the people who sent me questions. I know there are other things I wanted to talk to, but they'll have to wait till next time. So, guys, do your drills, keep your guard up, keep your eyes open, be kind to yourself and each other. As always, thank you for supporting your local sword master. I will be back next week here for another episode of the Historical Fencing Guild live stream. I'm hoping to get the videos up, bare minimum, up on the Patreon by the end of this weekend. And perhaps uh, some new stuff recorded to review that and just go over coolness. All of that's and more is coming. So guys, stick around and have a lovely night. Toodles.